Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. I want to apologize for the 3-week break. We had a lot of stuff going on, but now we are back and ready to go and have a lot of content lined up for you guys over the next few weeks. Now we're hoping to have videos come out at least once a week, maybe every other week, but I can promise you that videos will be a lot more consistent and there will not be as big of a break in between videos like we had from the last one to now. Now today we are going to be talking about college football head coaching changes, primarily in the Power 5. Now I know there were some major changes in the Group of 5, such as Sonny Dykes taking the job at SMU, and Missouri offensive coordinator Josh Heupel taking the job at UCF and replacing Scott Frost. But our main focus is going to be on the 13 coaches that took Power 5 jobs. We're going to break down which one is primed for the most success in his first year, the most intriguing hire, the best hire, and potentially the worst hire. So we're going to break down these 13 schools, these 13 coaches, and kind of give you an inside look at what to expect in their first year at their respective schools. And so here are the brand new coaches going into 2018 in the Power 5. As you can see, we have the SEC leads the way with 6 brand new coaches. Now, I know some of you may be saying that Matt Luke is not a brand new head coach. I'm putting him down as one because last year he was just the interim. He was the interim head coach for Ole Miss, and at the end of the season, they removed that interim tag and made him permanent coach. We were not sure they were going to do that for, as a definite. Hugh Freeze had that whole thing going on right before the season started, so we weren't sure if Matt Luke was just going to carry out coaching duties to the end of the season and they were going to go for a bigger name, but he actually did pretty good things with them. And so they removed the interim tag and kept him there, and that's why I'm keeping him up on this list. So the SEC leads the way with 6 brand new coaches, Pac-12 with 5, ACC with 1, Big Ten with 1, and the Big 12 with none. There was not a single new head coach in the Big 12, which is really good. That's a little bit more consistency there. So we'll go ahead and start up here with Arizona and Kevin Sumlin, which is a very intriguing hire. Not the most intriguing, but an intriguing one. Now, we knew Kevin Sumlin was on the hot seat going into 2017. He had had very good years with A&M, could never get over that hump, though. You know, when they were ranked number 4 in the nation, everybody thought they might be the real deal, and then they kept slipping. Too many 5-loss seasons, 8-5 seasons, and of course we thought if that happened again in 2017, he's out of a job, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. They finished the season 7-5, of course losing the bowl game to Wake Forest, but he did not coach in that one. So he was fired and took the Arizona job shortly after Rich Rodriguez was fired or let go due to some sexual harassment allegations. So when Rich Rodriguez was out, Arizona did not have a bad year. Kevin Sumlin steps in with a 51-26 record and then a 25-23 record in the SEC. Now, keep in mind something. I think Kevin Sumlin could be primed for some very good success in his first year with the Wildcats. We saw what he did at Houston with Case Keenum. To put up some big numbers there, big offensive numbers, went to A&M, did some big things there with Johnny Manziel, and he's inheriting an Arizona team that's led by Khalil Tate. We all know who that is. Saw what he did late in the season when he took over and could be in position to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. So Kevin Sumlin, a great offensive mind with Khalil Tate at his side, could be really dangerous in the Pac-12. So Kevin Sumlin is primed for some big success potentially in his first year, and especially if Khalil Tate sticks around a little bit longer. He could be primed for a couple of years of success. Arizona State, though, with Herman Edwards, I'm going to go ahead and flat out say it. This is my most intriguing hire right here. Herman Edwards at Arizona State. And I will say, I really, really like this hire. A lot of people are saying, why would you hire Herman Edwards? Herman Edwards hasn't coached a down of football since 2006 to 2008 when he last coached for the Kansas City Chiefs. He left the NFL with a 54-74 overall record. Why would he do that? Now, here's the thing. Coaches in the NFL tend to have better success in college. Some people just aren't cut for the NFL. We've seen it. You got Chip Kelly, Bobby Petrino, Nick Saban. Some of the really good college football coaches that just couldn't do very well in the NFL came back to college and have had great success. And I think that could be the case with Herman Edwards. He knows his football. He's energetic. It's going to be really fun to watch. One thing to note, one thing that I thought helped get Herman Edwards this job was Arizona State's athletic director, Ray Anderson, used to be Herm Edwards' agent. I thought that was an interesting note there. So I think that helped him get that job. This is going to be really fun to watch. You know, the 2 Arizona schools, brand new coaches. Everybody had doubts. Herm Edwards hasn't coached in 10 years, but I think he's going to get Arizona State, not immediately, but eventually get them back to some Pac-12 competition, be in contention for some Pac-12 titles. And if anything else, it's going to be really, really fun to watch, especially in his post-game interviews. Arkansas, first team from the SEC we have here. Chad Morris. Brett Bielema finally gets fired. You know, there was speculation, just like Kevin Sumlin, that he would be on the hot seat. Had some poor seasons there. You know, went 7-6. 2 years ago. And last year, Arkansas had a little bit of high expectations, knew they'd probably need to get back to the 7 to 8 win mark, weren't able to get it. Bielema was fired after a horrible 4-8 year. Despite some injuries and that kind of stuff, it was probably meant to be for Bielema to depart there. He never could really get his style of play going in the SEC. So Chad Morris comes in from SMU. Now, a lot of people I saw when he was hired, he has a 14-22 overall record at SMU, and people were very concerned about that. Why would we take a guy from a group of 5 school that has a losing record, just got his team to a bowl game just last year, and we're going to put him into the SEC West, one of the toughest divisions of all college football? Maybe you should overlook that and look back at his work as offensive coordinator at Clemson. He did very well there, kind of got Clemson back into the national spotlight. Dabo Swinney, of course, had done that himself as well, but Chad Morris really was one that rejuvenated that offense, got them where they needed to be. Chad Morris knows how to recruit, which is something big for Arkansas after Brett Bielema burned tons of bridges in the state of Texas, wasn't able to get his guys in from there. I think Chad Morris, give him a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, which is usually how long it takes to really see how a coach is going to do. Give him 3 or 4 years. I think he will have Arkansas back on the right track, and he should bring another fun style of offense, much like the Bobby Petrino days when Arkansas had a lot of success under him. Florida and Dan Mullen. Another one of the, in my opinion, one of the better hires of this coaching carousel. Not necessarily the best, but one of the better ones. As we all know, Dan Mullen had a history at Florida. He was their offensive coordinator along with Urban Meyer. He also is the second winningest head coach in Mississippi State history, which gives him a little bit of an advantage because he knows how to coach in the SEC and he knows how to recruit. Mississippi State used to not be known as a very big power. Used to be kind of overlooked by the schools, surrounding schools, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, those kind of guys. But Dan Mullen came in there, turned them around, got them back in the spotlight, had Dak Prescott, got them up to number 1 for a little bit there. So he knows how to recruit, he knows how to coach in the SEC, and putting him in Florida in a place where he's familiar with, where he knows what the expectations are, bringing a high style of offense there that he was able to do at Mississippi State, with what he was able to do at Florida as coordinator. That's going to be huge for them because Florida under Jim McElwain really lacked an offense. So I think that's a huge hire for them, bringing someone that's used to the program. Mullen's going to have Florida back on the right track and back as a contender in the SEC East very soon. I'd give him about 2 years, and I think he's going to be able to do that. So I'm very excited to see what Mullen can do with the Gators in the years to come. Florida State and Willie Taggart. Another very interesting coaching hire here because Willie Taggart just left Oregon after only 1 season. And that's a pretty big school. That's a pretty big deal. That's a big Power 5 school that Willie Taggart was at, leaving South Florida to go take that Oregon job, and all of a sudden he bolts after 1 7-5 year and goes to take the Florida State job, which, in my opinion, is a better job than Oregon. But still, it was very interesting that he left after just 1 year. Now, Florida State, as we all know, was 5-6 last year. Really got, when Jimbo Fisher left, they were able to get back to a bowl game and win that over Southern Miss. This is Willie Taggart's 3rd team in 3 years, in 3 seasons. South Florida, Oregon, and Florida State. But I think he's going to be able to turn this Florida State team around. And when you think about it, Florida State, turning them around, they should have been good last year had DeAndre Francois not gotten hurt. I think had he stayed healthy, we knew what he was capable of. I think Florida State would have definitely been in contention in the ACC and potentially for the college football playoff. But when your team gets derailed by injuries, especially the most important position in football, and things kind of take a turn for the worse, especially when it happens in the season opener. So I think Willie Taggart will be able to come in there. Florida State might not be used to the the kind of record that he's going to have at first, but like I said, as with all coaches, give him just a few years, and he's going to get them back into the national spotlight and back in contention for the college football playoff because he can definitely recruit, especially with such a good school as Florida State. As I mentioned before, Ole Miss and Matt Luke put him up here because the interim tag was removed. He did really good things with Ole Miss. I think he has them back on the right track. Had they not had that self-imposed bowl ban, they would have gone bowling last year in Matt Luke's first year. Shea Patterson out with injury. Jordan Teamu comes in and does a phenomenal job, I thought. And I really think that Ole Miss could actually be a real threat in the SEC West this year. We'll have to watch my preseason predictions here in a few months. But with Jordan Teamu, watching him as a dual-threat quarterback, he really took them. They won, I think, 3 of their last 4 games, had a chance to win 5 of their last 5, a 1-point loss to Arkansas that they completely blew, and then a 7-point loss to Texas A&M. Could have really made the season a lot better, but Matt Luke is a player's coach. If you go back and watch the video when they announced that interim tag was removed, you can just tell that the players really, really love this guy. He loved those players. He got them energized. He's fairly young, so he knows what he's doing, knows how to coach these players and get them back into contention. And Mississippi State's Joe Moorhead coming over from offensive coordinator at Penn State. This is a very interesting hire, I thought. When this was announced, I really didn't know who Joe Moorhead was that well, but he's done great things at Penn State. We saw what he did with Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley, how he rejuvenated that offense, made them one of the best in the nation. Saquon Barkley was one of the best running backs in the nation. So he's going to take over this Mississippi State team that has another very talented quarterback in Nick Fitzgerald. Trace McSorley and Fitzgerald are kind of similar, both dual-threat quarterbacks. But so will he be able to come in and continue the success on offense that Dan Mullen had at Mississippi State? That's something to kind of keep in mind. Will Mississippi State, take a step back from the Dan Mullen days, or will Joe Moorhead continue that success with the offense that Dan Mullen was running? Will he switch things around? That's something to kind of keep our eye on. I think that, with a quarterback like Fitzgerald and some of the offensive weapons that Mississippi State does have, he's going to have decent success. I would expect them to get to a bowl game this year, but it's going to take them a little bit to get back to maybe the 8-9 win marks that Dan Mullen had Mississippi State getting used to for a while. But that was a very interesting hire when it was announced, but I think Moorhead could be the right guy for the job if he can keep up that style of offense. If he can't, they could be in a little bit of trouble. Nebraska's Scott Frost, this is one of the bigger names in the coaching carousel for the majority of the season, especially with what he did at Central Florida, going undefeated and defeating Auburn in their bowl game. That was huge. He's going back to his alma mater at Nebraska, and if you remember during the American Athletic Championship game, it was announced, and we all kind of had speculated that he was going to take that job at Nebraska, but it was announced in the middle of the game as a definite. So Scott Frost was in the middle of preparing UCF for their bowl game against Auburn, while also having to handle recruiting with Nebraska. So that was kind of very difficult, kind of an odd position to put him in, but he was still able to go out there and get the win, leave on a high note, undefeated, and go to Nebraska. So the major question is, will he be able to continue that success at Nebraska like he did at Central Florida? It did not take him long to turn around Central Florida. Can he repeat that success at Nebraska, obviously in a much more difficult conference in the Big Ten? That's something to keep our eye on, but I think Scott Frost, without a doubt, he knows the culture at Nebraska. He went to school there, played for him, so he's going to know kind of what to expect, what Nebraska fans are going to expect. Give him a couple of years, and I truly think that Nebraska is going to, once again, be challenging for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. The biggest thing for me is personally going to be recruiting. How can he recruit? Is he going to get the big-time recruits to get to Nebraska? That is definitely something to keep our eye on. Oregon. Mario Cristobal was the co-offensive coordinator for them. Willie Taggart leaves to go to Florida State, and he takes over as interim head coach just for the bowl game against Boise State, which unfortunately for Oregon they did lose. But then the interim tag was removed, and he was given the head coaching position. Now, keep in mind, I believe it was Mario Cristobal only head coaching experience prior to this was at Florida International. So, obviously, a pretty big gap there, going from Florida International to Oregon. But he's been at Oregon long enough that I think he's going to he understands the culture. He's going to be able to go in. Willie Taggart did a great job turning that program around after the Mark Helfrich disaster. I think they were 4-8. He turned them around to 7-5. Will they take another step back, and how patient will the Oregon fan base be? Keep in mind, the year before, 2 years before, Mark Helfrich had Oregon in a national championship game, took a little bit of a step back the year after, and then went 4-8 the year after. So how patient will Oregon fans be? How patient will the Oregon administration be with Cristobal? This is Oregon's third head coach in as many seasons. You had Mark Helfrich when he went 4-8, fired. Willie Taggart, 7-5, left for Florida State. Now it's Cristobal. So they need some consistency. They need consistency at the head coaching position. Hopefully Cristobal can get Oregon back into the national spotlight, get them back in contention in the Pac-12 and nationally for the College Football Playoff. Give them, like I said, as I'm going to keep repeating this, give all these coaches time. And as a fan of the team myself, I know you guys are fans as well. It's hard to look at that and say we've got to give them time because you want your team to do well immediately right off the bat. But it's very, very difficult for that to happen. Whenever you get a new head coach, it's all about the rebuilding process. It's all about getting, implementing your style of offense and defense, getting in your recruits, getting in your coaching staff. So it's very difficult to do, very difficult to have immediate, success as soon as a new coach comes in. So I'll keep repeating that. I'll be very redundant when I say in a couple of years, this coach will be very good. I know it gets redundant, but that is clearly the truth. But I'm very excited to see what Cristobal can bring to the table for Oregon. Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, coming over as offensive coordinator at Washington. He is the first Oregon State graduate to become a head coach there. So that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big honor for him. Oregon State, Washington, obviously in the same conference, same in the Pac-12. So he kind of understands that style of play, that level of play. He competed at a high level with Washington as coordinator, making the college football playoff, making the Fiesta Bowl last year. So he had great success there, had a great offense there. Jake Browning at quarterback, and that's kind of what Oregon State needs right now. They need some offense to come over there and kind of rejuvenate it. So bringing in an offensive coordinator from a very solid, nationally ranked team with a great running back and a great quarterback, led by another great head coach in Chris Peterson. This is going to be very big for the Beavers. Now, Gary Anderson was fired mid-season. We saw that. Oregon State, I believe they went 1-11 this year, so a very horrible, horrible year for them. It's going to definitely take time for Jonathan Smith to turn this team around, without a doubt. Definitely going to take some time, but I do think he's the right person for the job. When you bring in a guy that is familiar with your culture, familiar with what is expected, kind of knows the area well, and is coming from a rival school in the same conference and has competed at a little bit of a higher level, this is good. This is what the Beavers need. I thought Gary Anderson would have been the man for a job. Coming over from Wisconsin, he just wasn't able to get that success. But personally, if you go to Wisconsin, I think you're almost guaranteed success. We saw Brett Bielema had that success there. Look what he did at Arkansas, nothing big. Gary Anderson did fairly well at Wisconsin, didn't do anything at Oregon State. So this is going to be big for Smith. It's going to take some time. Oregon State fans are going to have to be patient, but anything's an improvement from a 1-11 season, and I think they'll definitely top that win total this year. And then we're nearing the end of our coaching carousel here. Tennessee hiring Jeremy Pruitt. He was the defensive coordinator with Florida State and Jimbo Fisher back when they won the national championship in 2013. He was also the defensive coordinator for Alabama this year when they won the national championship over Georgia. So that is very big for Tennessee. Hopefully bring in a guy that can kind of turn this program around. He's a Nick Saban understudy. He has worked with Nick Saban. I'm sure they're hoping this works out just like another Nick Saban defensive coordinator did in the SEC East with Kirby Smart. I'm hoping Pruitt has the same experience, the same result as Kirby Smart did. It took Kirby Smart about 1 year, one decent year, then the next year we had him in the college football playoff. I don't expect that for Tennessee. However, they did just get a very big quarterback transfer in Keller Chris from Stanford. That's one major piece. Could potentially be the starter. I mean, he might have to sit out a year, but that's going to be huge for Jeremy Pruitt and his team to have an experienced quarterback that played at a very high level to kick off his coaching career with the Volunteers. So, Tennessee had some very high expectations under Butch Jones. Had high expectations last year. I did not have very high expectations for him last year. And Butch Jones was just never able to get over the hump, get them to win. 2 years ago, everybody had them picked to win the SEC East and potentially make the college football playoff, and he disappointed big time. Last year, of course, was a major disappointment going 4-8. Jeremy Pruitt needs a decent year that shows that they're heading in the right direction. They can't afford to have another 4-8 season where they just look abysmal like they did under Butch Jones towards the end of last year. I think Jeremy Pruitt is the right guy for the job. I was very intrigued by this. He has a couple of national championship rings already, so Tennessee bolsters up that defense a little bit. They've got a quarterback in place. They could become a major threat in the SEC East here in just a few years. And then finally, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to cheat a little bit and make this a tie. The two best hires by far, and probably the two biggest names by far this year, Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, and UCLA and Chip Kelly. Probably the two biggest names on the market while the coaching carousel was going around, and by far the best hires. These guys are going to get their teams back to some very, very good football and potentially make the college football playoff here fairly soon. We'll start over here with Jimbo Fisher. We saw the success that he had at Florida State, winning a national championship in 2013, and I really don't think you can blame him for what happened last year. Like I said, DeAndre Francois going down at Florida State. Jimbo Fisher couldn't help that, and that just he was a very young quarterback to start. So then you're putting in a freshman quarterback to play the majority of the season. That's not a recipe for success. Florida State still managed to get back to a bowl game. He left when they were 5-6, right before the season finale against Louisiana Monroe. Obviously did not coach the bowl game. But Jimbo Fisher with 83-23 overall record, that's exactly what A&M needs. Exactly what A&M needs. He knows how to recruit. He's in a big state of Texas competing against a bunch of good schools. He's in the SEC, though, and there have been rumors for a long time of when Jimbo Fisher was finally going to leave and where he would go. Well, here you go. He's at A&M, and A&M get ready. I do not think Jimbo Fisher is going to choke like Kevin Sumlin did. If Jimbo Fisher gets you up there into the top 10 and in contention for the college football playoff, you better expect to probably make it, because he knows what he's doing. We've seen what he's doing at Florida State, a place with very high expectations, a place against very good competition, Clemson, Miami, those kind of guys. He's going to get Texas A&M and make them a threat in the SEC West. And as Nick Saban nears the end of his retirement or end of his career, could we see Jimbo Fisher become the best head coach in the SEC West? That's something to keep our eye on. Then UCLA's Chip Kelly. UCLA fires Jim Mora after very disappointing seasons. You know, had a very solid quarterback in Josh Rosen there, and UCLA had the talent to really compete in the Pac-12, and they were just never able to do it. Now, I do know Rosen dealt with injuries, but they had a chance to do something really special with him, and they were not able to get it going. You fired Jim Mora. Chip Kelly comes in with a 46-7 record over 4 years at Oregon. Made a BCS Bowl every year while he was there. He left to coach the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, and like I said, did not have very good success there. But some people are just made for the college level, and I think that's what Chip Kelly kind of decided on himself, was that he was meant for the college level. He's going back to the Pac-12. Now, that's a heartbreaker for Oregon fans. I mean, he was never going to go back to Oregon in the first place, but to go back to the same conference where Oregon's going to have to play him every now and then, that's very, very frustrating to see. But Chip Kelly hasn't coached since 2016. I do not think that's a problem. This man's going to make UCLA a national power again. He's going to get them back into contention in the Pac-12. You know, the Pac-12 kind of fluctuates for a while. You got USC in there. He's definitely going to give USC a run for their money for a long time. Washington, I think, will take a little bit of a step down in a couple of years once Browning and some of their big leaders have to graduate or go to the NFL draft. Chip Kelly is going to get UCLA back to the top of the Pac-12, just like he did with Oregon. The question is going to be, how long is he going to stay there, and how long is it going to last? Could he be the next Nick Saban in the Pac-12? He's done some big things at Oregon. I expect big things out of him at UCLA. By far, these two are the best hires of the 2017-18 coaching carousel. If I had to choose the worst hire, the one that I just thought I'm a little shaky on, a little concerned about, to be honest with you, I would have to go with Jonathan Smith at Oregon State or Mississippi State and Joe Moorhead. Both solid offensive coordinators. My fear is that they're taking a big step forward coaching, being the head coach. Joe Moorhead from the Big Ten to the SEC. Jonathan Smith staying in the Pac-12, but still a very big leap of faith. And Oregon State's they want to get some success rolling again after some very disappointing seasons. And as I said earlier, the most intriguing hire, one that I really, really like, Herman Edwards at Arizona State. It's going to be very interesting. So here are your brand new head coaches going in the Power 5, going in to this 2018 season. Leave a comment. Let me know how you think these coaches are going to do. I'm excited to watch them all. It's going to be a very big focus point when we do our preseason predictions. It's going to kind of affect how I make my predictions. A lot of things go into that, but you know, I think for a lot of these schools, you really couldn't have gone wrong with any of these coaches. The question is going to be how long is it going to take for them to get some success going and making these guys contenders in their respective conferences. It's going to be very exciting to watch. So thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to comment anything else you would like to see discussed here on The Gridiron Expert. So once again, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.